Welcome to Meet the Author, where you can join in on insightful conversations with best-selling and award-winning indie published authors. Your hosts today are Rob and Joan, who themselves are indie published authors, book publicists, and paranormal investigators with Tampa Bay Spirits, based in Tampa Bay, Florida. Thanks for dropping by. And now, on with the show.
Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Joan. We're so glad that you're here, whether you're watching us live tonight or listening or watching at another time on any one of the many social media stations that we're on. We're really glad that you decided to be in on our audience, and all of the people who are watching us and listening to us from foreign countries. Thank you so much for your interest. We appreciate it. We have a comment from, two people. George Dismuke says, Nadine and I are here, plus two worthless dogs.
Hi, George and Nadine.
They are not worthless. Yeah, hi,
there
George.
We go.
Hi, Nadine. Marjorie Deering says, hi, another 7 revolutions around the sun already. I'm dizzy.
I can't believe how fast everything's going.
I know.
It's like, you turn around, it's...
Joe Concho says, hi, Rob and Joan. You know how we count the days? All right, so our dog,
like this.
This is
1,
the truth.
2, 3. No.
Very funny. Our dog has always been a picky eater. I don't know if you've seen the farmer's dog commercials about they'll do a happy dance and stuff, and we're like, yeah, right. She was getting sick all the time from the food she was eating, so we switched to farmer's dog. Okay, she waits at her bowl for it. She begs for it, and she eats it like she does the happy dance. But every 4 days we change what she's having from beef to chicken, and that's how we count the days. It's like it's been 4 days already. It's crazy.
Pamela Nichols. Hey guys.
Hey,
hi, Pamela.
How are you doing?
It's been a long time.
I know.
Good to see you.
It is. So that's how we count.
That is how we count.
That's the week is going by so fast.
That's right. That's right. It's either that or breakfast out at First Watch on
with our
the
daughter
weekend,
and,
Yeah. So
with Jess and Adam.
It just seems to come around real quick. Anyway, I want to remind everybody about Thursday nights on WDJYFM.com. Our show is running on there as well on Thursday night at 9 o'clock Eastern time. Also, if you live in the Atlanta area, northern Georgia there, 99.1 FM in Atlanta is the broadcast station there. Saturday episode rewind, 5:30 p.m. You can watch our old episodes on there, streaming. Next Wednesday, we're going to have at 7:30 p.m.
7:30?
No, it's 7 o'clock. Sorry about that. Yeah, we don't want you to be late. So 7 o'clock it is, just like always, Wednesday night. We're going to have author and filmmaker Sean O'Neill. He writes romantic suspense and horror thrillers, and apocalyptic stories. Now, you try saying that 3 times fast. I can't do it.
No, thanks.
In the news.
Okay.
In the news. The Moonshine Murders by Joy York is available for pre-order, and its release date is March 25th. But Magnolia Bluff Crime Chronicles, book number 22, is available now for pre-order. It's by Linda Pirtle. The name of it is Girlfriend Retreat ... Cheaper Than Therapy. That's the next book in the Magnolia Bluff Crime Chronicle series, available for pre-order. The actual release date is March 20th. So that's out there. It's on Amazon right now. You can pre-order it.
That's
Anything
great.
else?
Nope.
That's it?
That's
okay.
it.
We might as well bring in Teri.
I think so.
Okay. Hi, Teri.
Hi, how are you?
We're really good. How are you?
I am doing well. Today's been kind of a rainy day. We're expecting another big blast of rain come in about 9 o'clock tonight. So, but it's spring and we expect it.
We sent a bunch up to you the other day.
Did you do that? Oh, thank you. How nice of you.
At least we
think it came down.
We needed our sunshine.
Yeah, it's been raining off and on today.
Yeah, it's it's springtime. It's what you expect. So
pretty much. Yeah, we got to change our
usually the worst. I know.
This weekend.
March 10th.
Jeez.
spring ahead. I hate that. You guys hate that? Do you hate that?
I want them to pick one and keep it.
Stick with it.
Stick with it.
I don't care which one. I don't care if we split it in half. I don't care what we do, but I don't want it to ever change again. I'm kind of tired falling backwards and springing forwards, and the older I get, the worse it feels.
It does.
It takes me a week. It takes me a week to get myself back into I hate it. Absolutely.
It's like jet lag.
Yeah.
It's like you have jet lag after it.
And we're so old, we fall forward.
You do, whether you mean to or not. And then I look at my daughter, who has 3 young children. And kids are so scheduled. And then you change the time on them for an hour, and now a kid who used to get up at 6 is getting up at 5. No mother wants that. So no, I think I don't, whatever the purpose was when it was done isn't a purpose anymore, and we need to get rid of it.
Agreed.
And so now that we've decided that, someone should take note.
Well, we voted on it here in Florida.
Yeah, it's been voted on.
Florida, but its Congress won't approve it.
Terry, maybe a few in your family, and we decide we'll just stay on the old time.
And everybody will have
So do you want to know what's really crazy? I live right on the border of North Carolina, South Carolina.
Uh-huh.
In South Carolina, they allowed different districts to determine whether they were following it or not. And for 1 year, Myrtle Beach did not follow it. And I live 30 minutes from Myrtle Beach. So if you told someone in Myrtle Beach that you'd meet them there at 5, you had to make sure that you were...
Which 5 o'clock you were
Yeah,
talking
which
about.
5 do we mean? That's just crazy. That's crazy. And I know that, isn't there a state? There is one state
Arizona.
that doesn't.
Arizona.
Yeah. And I don't know. And then I think there's even a couple of countries that won't do it.
Yeah.
So when you're doing, I do podcasts and things with people in other places, and I have to go to a calendar date and look up the time to make sure that when I'm doing time changes that I've got it right, because it could be, an hour wrong depending on. Yeah, I just don't like it. It's dumb.
Well, Joe Conjal has 2 remarks. It's been raining here too. There's a reason for that, which we told you on pre-show.
Yes.
And he says, "Hi, Terry. Are you in or near Charlotte?"
No, Joe, I am in Calabash. I am on the coast. So right above Myrtle Beach, right below Wilmington.
So not too far from you, but...
No, about 3 hours. It's about a 3-hour drive.
Calabash, that's a great name. I love it.
Isn't it a great name?
It is.
Yeah.
Sounds like a Jimmy Durante.
Yeah. So Jimmy Durante used to say, "Good night, Mrs. Calabash, wherever you are."
Wherever you are.
And right. And he was talking actually to the woman who owned Ellie's restaurant. And Ellie's recently had a fire, but they're rebuilding, thank goodness. And I mean, Ellie's was like this fish place that was a Staples. Everybody knew about Ellie's. And the woman who owned that, apparently Jimmy Durante, at one point or another had come through, met her, and then he started doing that on his shows.
Wow.
That was his signature sign-off.
Yeah.
I wonder if she's still there.
No, she's not, but her family still owns. Yeah, it's still in the family.
It's still in the
Isn't
family.
that interesting?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Joe Conjal said it's a good seafood.
Yes, it is.
Too. Yeah. Well, maybe we should talk about your book even.
Well,
We could do that. Yeah.
Maybe,
Of course, I'm up for talking about anything. So, that's...
we've been on a couple of times, and maybe we should just kind of give people a little nutshell about, yourself and your writing and how you got started and that sort of thing.
All right. So my first book came out in 2022, and this is my 3rd. So I've had 3 books, 1 a year. Every January I've been putting out a book. I started writing for small businesses in 2000, and I wanted to be an author, but I wasn't in a place in my life where that was possible. I was living in an abusive relationship, and it's just difficult to produce something that takes that much of your soul. And not have a safe place to land if it doesn't go well, right? So when I got out of that relationship in 2017, words started pouring out of me. And I started writing manuscript after manuscript, but I wasn't letting anyone see them because despite getting out of the bad relationship, it takes a while to get over being in a bad relationship. I met my now husband, and I was never getting married again. And we could have a whole podcast just about that.
We sure could.
But I was never going to get married again. He tells everyone that he chased me. No, wait. Yeah, he chased me until I caught him, is what he tells people. And we decided, we got married, but prior to getting married, he had talked about wanting to go across the United States on a bicycle. That was something that he'd been wanting to do since 1976. I had been wanting to have a big adventure. I wanted to do something that I thought was going to prove to the world that I still had worth or value or whatever. I needed to prove it to me. I didn't realize that at the time. I thought that I needed to prove it to everyone else. And so when he brought that up, I thought, well, that's an adventure. So I asked him how serious he was about it, and he said very serious. And long before I decided that I was going to get married, I thought, well, I could go on an adventure with him. He's a nice enough person, right? So we got married, and then in the summer of 2020, so COVID summer, we rode from the coast of Oregon to Washington, D.C. on a tandem bicycle, so a two-seater bicycle, pulling a trailer and all of our gear and staying in campgrounds, and across the United States we went. And 3,102 miles, and that 2 miles, I can tell you exactly where they were. But when we were finishing up, so we finished up at the Marine Corps Memorial, and we did that because my husband is a former Marine, and we were raising money for Toys for Tots, and so it seemed like a very fitting place to stop. And you're coming up around the corner, and you can see the flag kind of at an angle up there. And he said, do you know what that is? And I kind of looked up. He said, that's it. That's where we're headed. And I started to sob. Like, I can't even explain to you. Then I started to laugh. Then I started to sob again. It was just a big emotional thing. In that period of time, I realized we had done it. Me, Teri, who is not an athletic person, who had not been on a bicycle in 40 years when I met Bruce, went across the United States on a tandem bicycle.
The Rocky Mountains.
The Rocky Mountains, yeah. Yeah. And we crossed a couple of different ranges. I mean, it was crazy. It was really crazy. And the fact that I did it, I thought, I can do anything. Like,
well, yeah.
What is it that I want to do? And I thought, I want to be an author. That's what I want to do. And 14 months later, Sunflowers Beneath the Snow came out. So that's kind of like my story in a nutshell.
That was wonderful.
Yeah. So this book is about 3 generations of Ukrainian women. And the really crazy thing is it came out like 3.5 weeks before the current Ukrainian crisis started. In fact, as my book was, going through and I'm getting the cover and they're sending me all of the copies to make sure that everything is right and everything, I'm watching the army of Russia amass on the borders. And I'm thinking, you've got to be kidding me. How crazy is this? And so, yeah, then that book came out. I tell everyone that there's a little bit of truth to it. I have a Ukrainian friend. She told me an incredible story. So the last 3 pages of the last chapter are true. And I wrote 82,000 words of fiction to get there. So that's...
There you go.
We have a few comments. Marjorie Deering said, the bicycling. Now that sounds abusive. Just the perspective from your basic couch potato. And George Dismuke says, finding a good relationship is like looking for a needle in a haystack. It took me multiple tries before I found my angel soulmate, Nadine, who does take very good care of George. Yes, and George takes good care of her.
And keeps him in line, I might say.
Yeah.
I think so. And Joe Conchel said, wow, what an amazing trip that must have been.
Yeah, so anyone who wants to know more about that trip, I kept a blog the whole way across. And so I wrote every single day that we were out. And if you go to my website, there's a tab, I think it's under the About Me section, and it says DBA, which stands for Double Butted Adventures, which is what I called the whole trip. And if you click on that tab, you can go in and you can read like everything you've ever wanted to know about the trip. And I was brutally honest because I had read a lot of blogs before going, and I decided that either those people were complete athletes and this just didn't bother them at all, or they're liars. And I think that they were probably liars because they just made it, they never told the hard stuff. They would just talk about, oh, we did this and we did this, and, you know, and my blog talked about things like, well, I stood next to the cows in the only shade in 4 miles and I cried. And I didn't think I could go on until I finally got the tears out and then thought, okay, well, I can't sleep here with the cows, you know. So I was just very honest about, you know, how hard it was and how things just like the wind blowing too hard or it being too hot or too cold or too rainy or too anything can really have an effect. Or not sleeping well. You know, being in a campground where people partied until 4 a.m. and now you're getting up at 6 trying to get out on the bicycle. You know, those kinds of things really change what your day was like. So
how long, I think you said this, but how long did it take you to do that?
So it was 72 riding days, but we were out a little over 3 months. I tell everyone we're not spring chickens, and we did have to take breaks here and there because, you know.
Yeah, you couldn't have done it in 72 straight days.
Now, some people do. Some people ride 70, 80 miles every single day from one side to the other. I didn't have anything to prove.
Right.
And I told my husband, I said, he's way more athletic than I am. And I said, you know, you're going to have to go at my pace because I can't go at yours.
Right.
Like, I can't do 80 miles a day. I can do 80 miles a day, but not every day, you know. So
Billy Conchel said you should stick all the blogs about the trip together into a memoir.
I'm actually writing something more like a lessons learned kind of thing, you know, things that I learned along the way. Like, you don't need as much stuff as you think you do. You know, we ended up sending 20 pounds of stuff back at the 2-week mark. And I did my stuff out of fear because my husband said, I think I've made a mistake. And it was like, oh my gosh, if he's made a mistake, we're dead. And he said, I'm carrying too much stuff. Do you have anything you could send back? Well, I found things that I could send back. And about a week and a half later, he said, I think I have a few more things that I could send back. And this time I wasn't afraid. I was just more wise. And I went through and got rid of more. So we started out 40 pounds heavier. And then before we got to the Rockies, we had gotten rid of about 40 pounds because it was like, we're just hauling weight for no reason. And that's crazy.
Yeah, we just drove through the Rockies in June or July this past summer. And
I got tired driving.
Yeah.
It was definitely an adventure. It's not one I would want to do again, not because I didn't love it, but I don't need to do it twice to prove anything. I think once for me was enough. But it was great. I think
a herd of about 130 elk.
Oh, wow.
Came down off the mountain and surrounded our truck.
Oh, that would have been scary on a bicycle.
That's what I was going to say. They're kind of big.
Yes, they are kind of big.
They're big when you're in a truck. Never mind when you're on a bike. We bicycle all the time, and
but we're flatlanders right now.
We are. I don't know how you did that. When you said about the wind, when we're driving it, when we're riding into the wind, it's hard to pedal.
It is. And we had, when we were in Montana, so we got over the Rockies, now it's supposed to be easy. And the wind decided to blow the wrong way. It normally blows from the west to the east. And for 2.5 weeks, it blew the other way, right into us the whole way across Montana. And quite frankly, I don't ever want to see the eastern half of Montana ever again. It was just...
Enough was enough.
Enough was enough, right?
Well, okay, it's time to take a break.
Yeah.
Believe it or not. We haven't even talked about your new book yet.
Yeah.
We'll get there, people.
Our book
Trust
number 2.
us.
And, okay. All right. Well, then let's hit it.
We'll be right back.
Be right back, folks.
Many secrets are hidden within the darkness of the jungle. Now comes part 4 in the Jaguar series by retired Hollywood scriptwriter George Dismukes. In this saga, Brandon, Andrea, and Naja, the Black Jaguar, go deep into the Mato Grosso jungle on a mission to rescue 2 kidnapped children. During their journey, they encounter many dangers, including Yanomami Indians, bent on revenge for the murder of one of their warriors.
Return of the Jaguar is book 4 in the Jaguar series, starting with 2 faces of the Jaguar, The Lost City, and the Jaguar's Quest. All 4 are available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and other bookseller websites worldwide. Return of the Jaguar is a must-read.
It's every parent's worst nightmare. Police officer Madison Jackson awakes to discover her baby kidnapped from her crib. Was it revenge for someone she arrested, or something far more sinister? Madison's estranged husband is incarcerated in Supermax. As the second in command of a deadly Mexican cartel, did he issue the order to abduct their daughter? Bye, Baby, Bye, from author Kelly Marshall. Get your copy today.
The clock is ticking. Can Gracie uncover the truth?
Philip Pliant is the wealthy opportunist plastics dealer and CEO of Pliant Industries. He's also a master thief, creating a pervasive threat to the manufacturing infrastructure in the Caribbean islands markets. With the cartel as his stealth client, the naive city leaders have been seduced, enabling the production of more than 3-dimensional building materials.
The expected profits are monstrous.
Is the art group, now led by Gracie and the family heirs, strong enough to win against this predator?
Can JJ's cats act on the root cause analysis in time?
Will Gracie be able to squash Pliant and the cartels?
Gracie never considered their lives would hang in the balance. The clock is ticking. 5, 4, 3.
Okay, that last commercial's for the Enigma Tracer by Brakefield and Berkey.
Okay, so let's go back to your brand here for a minute. Actually, I'll go back to, I want to put up your website again and speak it because I just put it up before.
Okay, so yeah, it's www.terimBrown.com, and that's Terry with 1 R, TERIM Brown.com.
Yes.
Perfect.
And also your email
is easy. It's Terry at TeriMBrown.com. Just remember, Terry only has 1 R.
And 1 I.
1 I.
And 1 I. Yeah.
It's just DERI.
And 1 B. Don't forget the B.
1 B for Brown, right?
All right. That's enough silliness. Okay.
So then you went on to the next one was An Enemy Like Me, right?
Right. So An Enemy Like Me is World War II genre, but Jacob that you see there on the cover is a first-generation German-American. When he goes to fight in World War II, he believes that he's going to fight the Japanese, and he ends up in Germany and recognizes he's more like the enemy than he is different from the enemy. And we look at his war story from his point of view, but also from his wife and his 4-year-old son who was left behind. And we see that 4-year-old both as a child and as an adult reflecting back.
And then that comes to the new one.
Yeah, and so this is my new one, Daughters of Green Mountain Gap. And it is about 3 generations of women in the mountains of North Carolina, so the Appalachian Mountains. And the oldest is Maggie, and she is a granny woman, which is like a healer, one that uses roots, herbs, and what I say is like a little bit of mountain magic. Like there's just that little bit of, I don't know, like they can say and do things and stuff just happens, you know? And so she's that. She has a daughter, Carrie Ann, who doesn't like the way her mother practices medicine and holds her mother responsible for her father's death. And so she wants to be a healer, but she wants to do it the right way. And so she goes off and becomes a nurse, and she comes back to her community with a doctor in tow, intent on bringing modern medicine to town. And this sets up a nice little, conflict between mother and daughter. Carrie Ann, though, has a daughter herself, and Josie May loves both of these women fiercely, and she sees something that her mother in particular cannot see, which is that there isn't necessarily a right way, that both granny woman medicine and modern medicine don't heal everyone, and that you can't necessarily pick which method is going to be best. And so, yeah, we just kind of follow them through. There's always the good twist, and we'll see what happens.
You have to buy the book to see what the good.
You have to read the book, right?
Yeah.
Are these characters based on anybody you know?
No. So I'll tell you how I came up with the story, which is really crazy. I had a wart. Okay, so I had a wart on my thumb.
Crazy.
No big deal. I went to my primary care doctor for just a regular appointment. And while I was in the office, I said, "Hey, would you mind just burning that off?" And she said, "Oh, no, I could not do that. You would have to go to a specialist." And I thought, you've got to be kidding me. So I just went to CVS, got a little patch. That was the end of that. So fast forward several weeks, and I'm talking to my brother on the phone, and we were complaining about how primary care doctors don't really do anything in the office anymore. It used to be that they did all of these little functions, and now they just send you out. They listen to your lungs, and they send you to a specialist. And I told him about my wart, and he said, "Why didn't you get someone to talk it off?"
Talk it off.
That's what I said. What? And he said, "Yeah, I got a buddy that talks off warts." Well, there was no way I was falling for this, because I'm the gullible one in the family. So people tell me stories, I believe them, and then Christmas after Christmas, I have to hear about, "You remember that time when we told Teri?" And then everyone laughs. So I just didn't bite. But when we got off the phone, I had to look it up. I had to know. It was like I didn't believe him, but there was that piece that could not let that pass. Well, guess what? There are people who talk off warts. They will talk to your wart, and within the week, your wart falls off. So
Wow.
I started doing more digging.
Are they mean to the wart?
No, and sometimes different people have different methods. Some people buy it from you. They give you a penny for your wart, and your wart will fall off. Some people bury things like potatoes, and that makes it's crazy. I don't understand what's happening, but they swear this works. Well, I start doing more research because I've got to know more about this kind of thing, right? Like, what is this? Well, I found out that there were people like, you know what thrush is? And so you get thrush in your mouth, right? There are people who can blow in your mouth and get rid of thrush.
Wow.
There are people who can talk to a baby who's breech and get the baby to flip.
Oh, I could have used both of those things when I had kids.
Seriously. So now I'm really digging, right? Because this is cool stuff. Like, I've never heard of any of this. And it led me directly to the Appalachian Mountains and granny women. And they used roots and herbs and medicine that they understood, but there was also that little bit of, what are they doing? What is that little chant? What is that, this belief, or the feathers, or they all had these like little things that they did. And while I was doing that research, Maggie like jumped into my head, and I knew her name immediately, and I knew that we had to write a story about her. So
did your research take you up into the Appalachians physically? So
I've been there several times. I love that area. It is gorgeous. So this time I was not able to go. My husband is ill. He has cancer. And so trying to go and do is a little bit difficult right now. But I did a lot of research, and being that I live in North Carolina, finding North Carolina research about the North Carolina mountains is not that difficult, and you know where to go and what to do. And so.
That's fascinating. That really is.
And I think, you try to think, well, what is at work here? And I go back to, our brains are phenomenal, and they are far more powerful than we can even begin to understand. We don't have a clue really what's going on. You can give someone a sugar pill and tell them that it's a pain pill, and their pain lessens. It doesn't make sense. There's no good explanation except that it works, right? And I think the same thing happens with these granny women. They believe that they have power. The people who come to them believe that they have power. And that belief between the two of them is enough to let your body and your brain do what is necessary to heal.
Joy wants to know, did someone talk off your wart?
No, I ended up just using a patch from CVS.
And Joe Conjal said, if you mentioned you could do that in the 1600s, they'd burn you at the stake. And
That's
Marjorie
exactly
Deering had the same idea. She said in 1692, those specialists would probably have been called witches.
Exactly.
And be burned at the stake. And, you know, I'm of Irish descent. And there were women like that in Ireland, too.
Right.
That
in fact, most cultures have that.
Yeah, they used herbs and things for healing, and you know, and were very successful. George Dismuke says, our minds heal or kill us more than any other consideration. I think that that's true, George. And,
it is true.
You know, I think
they've done all kinds of studies. For instance, optimistic people heal from surgeries faster than pessimistic people. So there has to be something with mindset and belief, and there's just, like I said, there's more to healing. I know I would never give up modern medicine. I think that, you know, I know too many people. I wouldn't want to go back to bloodletting for things like diabetes. You know, that doesn't make any sense, right? So I wouldn't want to give it up. On the other hand, I think that we lost a lot when we just threw the granny woman type medicine to the curb. You know, I think that there's a good way to combine the best of both of those worlds. Granny women had this ability to look at a person and get to the root of what was going on because they listened and they cared and they wanted very much to connect with this person and find the right cure, not just a cure. A lot of times I feel like if you go into the doctor and they already know what they're going to prescribe before they've ever come in the room. You know, they've heard from the nurse that you have a cough. They already know what they're going to do for you. And a granny woman would have never done that. She would know there's 16 different things she could do for a cough, and she wants to hear your cough. And she wants to know how long you've had it, whether it's worse in the morning or at night. Does it feel hot or cold when you know, all of those things, and that would change what she gave you. And so I think that there's like lessons to be learned from both sides. I would love to see more of a combination.
In Eastern medicine too.
Right. Exactly. And I think there's, you know, functional medicine is becoming a thing right now, much bigger. And I think that functional medicine is far closer to this idea of bringing in modern things that we know and understand and being willing to listen to your body and figure things out and look at things like nutrition and other very straightforward things instead of just the sick model. Wait until you're sick and then we'll fix you.
Joy York says, I have a distant relative that lived in Tennessee who was a medicine woman of sorts, who everyone in the community who did that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Medical and potions and such. Yeah.
Right. It's amazing. I've done a lot of book clubs now and libraries talking about this book. And in every single group I've been in, someone has raised their hand and has a friend or a distant relative or someone that, oh, my grandmother used to be, my aunt was, you know, a granny woman. So.
Yeah. Oh, Marjorie Deering said, don't you love the ads that tell you to ask your doctor about XYZ to see if it's right for you? I think that's turned around.
Totally is.
Right. It is.
Not to mention.
And you're right, Marjorie. There's all those ads.
What do they show in the background while they're talking before they list all the side effects?
Right.
They're showing people that are doing something totally different, you know, and they're all happy. They're all eating ice cream,
dancing
around, singing nonsensical stuff. It doesn't make any sense what they're doing. And it's got nothing to do with what the medicine is going to fix to begin with. You know what I mean?
Ask your doctor.
And then you have to hear, you know, 30 seconds worth of all of the side effects said really, really fast, so
effects.
maybe you won't understand everything that's happening.
Right.
Joy York said they all
Yeah.
have 5,000 side
Exactly.
effects. It's like, so you won't have eczema anymore, but you might have
It could
kidney
cause-
failure,
it could
you
cause
might have a heart attack, you might have a stroke.
Yeah, death is a.
But other than that, no big deal, right? Yeah.
As long
Your
as you
skin
pay
will
for
look
the
good.
pay for the drugs, yeah.
Yeah.
I know, it's
Yeah.
crazy. It
And like
really
I
is.
said, I am not against modern medicine. I think there's a
No.
place, there's a time and a place. I just think that we could probably do all ourselves a favor if we started paying attention to our bodies long before they got ill, and took time to figure out what our bodies need, how we best feel good, how much sleep do we really need, what foods really do energize us versus make us, feel like, like we're in a fog, those kinds of things. And I think all of that would be so helpful.
Well, what you were talking about with the granny woman was you said that they listened to that particular person. And I don't think that everybody, there's no one size fits all.
There isn't.
Each one of us is unique. And so what might bother me might not bother you, and
Right.
vice versa. And what's good for me might not be the best for you. And that's important. I think that's really important. We happen to have a really good doctor who we're really happy that we have her because she listens to us.
Right. Right. In fact, I tend to go to a nurse practitioner because I have found that nurse practitioners listen and doctors often don't. They're busy. They're busy being a doctor, and a nurse practitioner is more willing to say, I've never heard of that before. Tell me more.
Joy York says, my mom was an RN and she told me you know your body more than anyone else. Yes. If what you're told to do doesn't feel right, don't do it. There is a lot doctors don't know.
Exactly.
That's 100% true. And I agree with that. It's funny.
Yeah.
Most people, I used to be married to a doctor. That was my first husband.
You were?
Uh-oh.
He was the son of a gun. He was like your first husband. And so I was around doctors all the time and I know how they think. And I have no problem sitting down and saying, this is what I think, this is what I want. And if they say, well, we think you should do that, and I don't think so, I'm going to say, no. But I think most people feel they can't do that. But guess what? You can. You're paying for a service.
It's your care. Yeah.
You're paying a lot of money for that service, and it is your body, and you do know it better than anybody else. Joe Congress says, my problem is that my body keeps telling me it needs the caramel cashew trail mix from Target.
Well, Joe, maybe it does. Maybe it does.
And George just nukes both. They're busy getting rich. That's what they're busy doing.
Yeah. So there's another aspect to the book. I have Maggie learn some of what she learns from a Cherokee medicine man. So in the mountains of North Carolina, there is still part of a Cherokee tribe that remained. Yeah. So they didn't, in the Trail of Tears, they didn't go, they stayed. And so I have her interact with this medicine man, and she learns many valuable things from him. But when she goes back into her community and tries to bring that, she feels there's a lot of resistance. There are a lot of people who are like, we don't want that savage medicine. And so I like to show, she stands up and she pretty much tells them, if you want me as your granny woman, then you'll accept what I bring to the table. And if you don't, I can go elsewhere. And they don't have anyone else and they know it. And so they go ahead and accept her, but there's always that little bit of talk, and gossip about what is she really doing when she goes to that village, and those kinds of things that people do. So I wanted to bring that in because it is such a valuable part of North Carolina Appalachian Mountain history. And so I get to talk a lot about just some of the Cherokee beliefs. Mostly I talk about their idea of balance, where everything is balanced.
That's what
we've been talking about that a lot. And as a matter of fact, some of our kids and their kids came over on Sunday, and I've always admired the indigenous people, and especially the Navajo. And I told them, I think that what I really admire is their philosophy of life.
Yes.
And it's a very good philosophy of life. There is balance, and that's so important. And also there's the thought of, if it's a drought, you work within the drought. You don't fight the drought. You don't try to change the drought. You're in a drought. Now let's work through it. Or if there's a flood, you work through that. Right. Whatever happens.
Which is really, when you think about it, all part of balance.
It is.
Yeah. It's this balance. There's a part in my book where Maggie she's living near the Cherokee for a period of time. And while she's there, she's helping. And so they're digging up roots and things, and she starts doing it. And a woman puts her hand on hers and reaches over and shows her what she's doing. And she's not picking every plant. She's picking like every 5th plant. And later Maggie finds out. So Maggie understands that's what she's to do, and she goes and does it. But she later finds out this is part of the idea of balance. You don't go in and just wipe it all out. You take what you need, and you leave the rest.
So propagates again.
Right. You know, the idea that you don't have to take all the roots. You know, you only take what you need.
Well, George Dismuke says, well, as Ron White says, there ain't no fixing stupid. He said, I'm speaking of the naysayers.
Right.
You're right. Time for our break, guys.
Yep. Need to take our last break here. And when we come back, we'll talk some more. How about that?
Yeah.
That'll be fun.
This book sounds great.
Stay tuned, folks.
Paradise, my prison. Charlie Flint awakens from a deep sleep and finds himself alone on a tropical beach surrounded by a palm tree jungle and exotic animals. He cannot remember who he is or anything about his life. First, he must find food and build shelter and protect himself from hidden dangers. As his memory gradually returns, it reveals what a very flawed person he is. A man who made too many mistakes, made too many enemies. The implications of the truth are staggering. How did Charlie get there? And will he save himself? Paradise, My Prison is the riveting new suspense thriller from retired Hollywood scriptwriter George Dismukes. Paradise, My Prison by George Dismukes is available in jacketed hardcover, softcover, and all ebook formats worldwide.
It's 1919, and Eric Laska returns from the war in Europe. 2 new enemies await him in the small, coal-mining town he calls home. One is a threat to his relationship with Rebecca, the love of his life. The other, a bloodthirsty beast, is stalking the mining town residents. The townspeople suspect Eric of one of the killings. An old man and Rebecca's 11-year-old sister have seen the beast, but only Eric believes their story. To protect the town and clear his name, he's forced to prove the werewolf exists. Available on Amazon. The Horror Within by Marjorie Swift Doring.
Step into the captivating world of skullduggery, where a family of isolated peasant copyholders finds themselves thrust into a web of danger that threatens their very existence. Set against the tumultuous backdrop of the English Reformation, this meticulously researched historical mystery unfolds with a cast of both lovable and despicable characters, immersing you in a fully realized world that's both utterly believable and fantastically unbelievable. Author Paul Rushworth Brown weaves a spellbinding narrative that transports you to Yorkshire, England, in the 16th and 17th centuries, offering an authentic and gritty portrayal of peasant life. The pages come alive with vivid descriptions, crafting an atmosphere that pulls you deeper into a story of crime, murder, and suspense like no other.
Hi, I'm Paul Rushworth Brown, author of Skullduggery, Red Winter Journey, and Demon Courage, just recently released. I hope you enjoy Skullduggery, the second edition. Cheers.
And we're back.
Yes, we are. Well, that really sounds fascinating.
It does.
Yeah, I like that.
I have to read that one.
Yeah, and there's also, of course, just because you have family, then you have all the just normal family drama. And I had someone say to me, this book, although it was written in the 1890s, it feels like it could be today. And it's like, well, of course, because families haven't changed that much over the years. I mean, you still have relationships that are strained. You still have, people who learn to live together and love one another despite major differences. You still have, racism still exists. There isn't a lot that happened in the past that isn't still going on in some form or another today. I feel like I feel like as humans we don't progress too fast. So
baby steps.
Well, we say we're slow learners.
but maybe it looks like we do, right? Like, we'll get over being racist over one group, but we'll just put it onto someone else instead. I mean, it just seems to be the way of people, and so
don't like things that are different.
Right. And so historical fiction often feels like today, just because it's easy to draw parallels to what was going on then to what is happening now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think that, Marjorie and Joy and a couple of people mentioned the fact that, Joe, I think too, the fact that somebody like that would have been burned at the stake in the 1600s.
Yes.
And that's all those women were in Salem, is they were, medicine women or healing granny women or however you want to call it.
And having this thing called a sixth sense was considered horrible. But, I know a lot of people who, I don't know, like so this will sound crazy, but my grandmother and I had a crazy connection where I would know she was thinking about me. She lived in Ohio. I lived in North Carolina, and I could pick up the phone and she would say, "You're not going to believe this. I was just writing you a letter." And it was like, no, I believe it. I mean, I could feel it. So, that would have had me burned at a stake. That because I could do that with my grandmother. Why? I have no idea why, except that I think that there are connections between people. And I think granny women are just more in tune with people and the earth.
Well, they're probably intuitives.
Yes.
And maybe even empaths.
I think the unknown is really scary for people.
Yeah.
And it threatens the power structures.
It does.
So when they see stuff happening that they can't control, they have to eliminate it.
You have to damp it down. You have to, make sure that nobody else is going to go that route. Yeah. And so that happens a lot.
Yeah.
Joyce says many people would sneak to see them. It would ruin their reputation to see those people. Right. But they all wanted their services.
Exactly.
And George says racism has been around since before the Egyptians enslaved the Israelites to build their pyramids.
It's true. And so, like I said, the more things change, the more they stay the same. And that's what I love. That's really one of the reasons that I love writing historical fiction is you get to bring up topics that are relevant today in a way that doesn't scare people. Because it's about a time in the past and people can read it and relate to it. And I hope eventually come to that's like today moment, but it's done in a way that isn't in your face. We can have a conversation about the racism that happened against the Cherokee, and it doesn't get anyone really uptight. But we can't have that same conversation about racism that happens today without getting people uptight. And so I just love the idea that literature can do that, can allow you to explore concepts that are worthwhile exploring, but in a way that you don't have someone labeling you immediately because of a thought that you've had or whatever. So,
or you're not schooling them.
Right.
And that's offensive to everybody.
Yeah, you're not trying to make a point. Like I am trying to make a point, but I'm not trying to make a point like score. I'm just putting it out there and hoping
they can pick it up and own it themselves. They can say, "Oh, whoa!" This is
and what it is it's a really good story, and you can also find a message if you want to.
Joe Conjal says, or they'll ban it and it will become a bestseller.
It would be fine by me.
No worries. Right?
Well, we have friends that are, for want of a better word, are witches. They actually call themselves witches, but that's just like being a granny woman. They don't, it's not like, they don't fly around on broomsticks and have warts.
They don't have warts and long noses, right? Right.
But they do use herbs and that kind of thing, and it's
I just think there's a lot of power to that. I think that as a race of people, we have the tendency when something new and shiny comes along that we throw away the old real fast and we go chasing after the new and shiny. And what we end up doing is throwing that baby out with the bathwater. Mm-hmm. And there's good things in things from the past. Maybe not everything. I don't want to go back to bloodletting. Like, I see no sense in that. And I certainly don't think that we should all be, sucking on opium in order to handle problems. I get that we don't want to go there. On the other hand, there were a lot of really amazing things that were done that were ignored by modern medicine. And finally, after all these years, we're starting to come around to them again. People are starting to say, why do we wait until we're super sick? Why can't we start working on things like staying healthy?
Joy York said, aren't many of our medication made from herbs? Yeah, they are.
A lot of them. Unfortunately, though, a lot of medications now are made from synthetics that are made to act like the herbs that they found worked. So instead of using dandelion greens, they go and they make a synthetic dandelion green, which I just don't think can be nearly as healthy for your body.
No.
Because now you have chemicals.
Chemicals in your body.
Right.
Yeah, I know. It's funny. It really is.
I do want to add a disclaimer. I'm not a doctor, and nothing in this book should be used as a remedy without your own research and understanding.
And you've said many times that you do believe in modern medicine.
Yes.
And you're not playing a doctor on TV.
I'm not playing a doctor on TV.
Okay.
None of those things. No.
Okay.
Yeah. Just a disclaimer, though, because, I do believe that there are a lot of these things that can work, but I certainly wouldn't go look at my book and say, oh, now there's a remedy I want to try. I mean, the remedies that I put in there were actual remedies that I found that granny women were using in that period of time. Whether or not they worked, I can't tell you. I wasn't there, and I didn't get to do any research that way. So
well, they could have had about the same. I mean, they could have had a 50-50 effect depending on the other person,
Yes. Yeah. And I think that
some of the stuff, it's like
that's one of the things that was so interesting to me is when they were getting herbs and picking them, sometimes it actually mattered when they were picked, like at where in the cycle where the sap would be. Was it down in the roots? Was it all the way up to the leaves by now? And that where it was picked, when it was picked, how it was picked, which part of the plant was used, all gave it different properties for healing. So a dandelion, for instance, its roots could be used for one thing, its leaves for another, its stems for another, its flower for another. When it was picked, could make a difference. All of those things. And I just found that really fascinating. These women who did this had an incredible amount of knowledge, and a lot of that has been lost.
I was just going to say that is a lot of knowledge. That's like, 8 years of medical school.
Exactly.
To know all of that and to remember all of that, that's amazing.
Well, and to know that maybe there are 6, 7, 8 different herbs that you could use to help someone with a particular problem. And you don't just start going through and see which one works. You have an idea which one's going to work based on what you've learned about this person.
Yeah.
And so you decide you're going to start with herb number 6 instead of herb number 1 because of something they said or did, or maybe even the color of their skin, their complexion, like they look sallow, or they look very pale, or they look, ruddy or something. And that says to you, oh, wait a minute, this would be better than this.
I need to take 1 second to say good night to our Atlanta listeners. on WDJY 99.1 FM. Thank you so much for joining us, and come back next Thursday at 9 o'clock Eastern Time. Good night, folks.
But the rest of you stick around because we're not.
Hang in there. We're not quite done yet.
We're not finished yet.
I wanted to ask you about your podcast. You've got a fairly regular podcast now. Is that correct? I don't think you.
So I started in January.
Okay.
And it's coming out once a week. And then I've had so many people that have been wanting to be on it that I now have a special once a month. So I have an extra just because I had so many people. I'm booking into February of next year already. It's like,
what's the name of your podcast?
So it's called Online for Authors. Okay. And I do a lot very similar to what you do. I talk a lot with indie published authors, small press authors, new authors that don't have a platform yet, who understand they need to market but don't even know what that means, and give them a place to sit and talk about their books. So I do it very much your style in terms of, I tell everyone it should feel like you're sitting down to coffee and a bagel and we're just going to talk about your book. So
and can they connect?
Exactly what
can
we
they
do.
Connect through your website?
Yep, they can just go to my website. There's a tab up there that says podcast. They can just click right there. So definitely reach out to me. I also have a contact page there. So, if you didn't want to join like any of my social media or my newsletter or anything like that, you can just reach out on the contact page. I love chatting with people. So
Joe Conjal says, sign me up.
Okay. Reach out to me, Joe.
Got to reach out. Yeah. Boy, that's for sure, right?
Yeah.
But so, and I'm enjoying it. I really love, I've met so many amazing authors. I have read so many amazing books. One of the things I am doing is I'm reading the book first. So I'm reading like crazy, but it's really broadened what I'm reading because I love historical fiction, which is probably why I write a lot of historical fiction. But because of this, I have started reading, I've been reading cozy mysteries, some thrillers. I've read 2 different medical thrillers now. I've read straight up mystery, not just cozy, but just straight up mystery. A couple of fantasy books, which is really blows my mind. I would have said I didn't like them, but I loved them. I absolutely loved the 2 that I read. I have read some history as well, but varied history. I read one that was back in the times of Christ. I read a World War II one that was based in Australia. Just a lot of very different books, and so it's a lot of fun. I'm enjoying myself.
So do you go out on? It's a video podcast, right?
Yeah, but I record it. So it's not live.
It's all pre-recorded. Okay.
Yeah.
And does it go out? Then you show it out on LinkedIn?
So I put it out on, it's on YouTube, and then it's on my website, and then it also goes out to, Spotify and all of the others. So what I do is I do a video that goes out on YouTube, and then I just do the audio version and I stick it out on a lot of podcast platforms as well.
Good. Good to know.
Yeah. So any authors listening, feel free to reach out.
There's a lot of authors listening. I'm sure they will.
Yeah.
We love what we do. We really do. We have so much fun doing it. It's been amazing.
And everybody needs all the help they can get.
Everybody.
Guarantee it.
Yeah. Well, and I know that I have found that being a podcast guest has done a lot for me. First of all, it helps me hone my message. I learned very quickly what it is that I do want to talk about and what I don't want to talk about. And it also, if you Google me now, I come up in a lot of different places because I've been on a lot of different podcasts and it can't hurt me, Right. And so I don't know. And plus I get to reach out to audiences that might not otherwise know me. You're in Florida. I'm in North Carolina. I'm not going to come to Florida anytime soon to do a book signing. And so this is the next best thing. Yeah.
No, I think it's great. And this is probably the most fun thing we've ever done because like you said, all of the authors that we've met are really wonderful people.
Good people.
Yeah. And everybody's so willing to help everybody else.
I love that. I love that. In fact, I've said that it is so crazy that the publishing world is so closed and difficult, and I'm just going to straight up say nasty is the way it feels to me. And yet the writers are all here. Let me help you. Here's 16 things I can tell you that'll make your life better. Here, you need someone to beta read your book. I'll do that for you. I mean, that's what you have going on there. And then you have publishing companies that won't even write you a letter, won't even tell you that they received something that you sent them, and it seems so crazy that this generous group of authors is up against something that's that brutal,
They don't need them.
Right. Which is why so many of us go indie, right? Because who needs that? Who needs that in our life?
A lot of our authors that we've had on our show were published by publishing houses and decided to go.
Yeah, because they don't do anything for you anymore.
Not anymore.
No,
it's not the same.
It's a very different world out there.
I mean, what surprised me the most, I think, is when we've had New York Times bestsellers on, and I mean, they are just as willing to help. They think all the same way. I know I've talked about this a lot, but Anne Hillerman has been on our show, and her dad was my favorite author of all time, Tony Hillerman. And now she's taken up his characters since he passed away. Well, not since. There was a big gap where she didn't want to do it. She'd always been a journalist, but she hadn't been writing fiction. And she's done a great job. She really has. But to hear her tell stories about her dad, and, he would say, well, Jim Chi just won't do what I want him to do. And it's like what all of our authors have said is like when we talk about, to see that and to realize that an author that you really loved was talking the same way and feeling the same way about writing as you do. It's like, what, are you kidding me? And then for her to say, it's nothing like when my dad was published. It's not like that anymore. No, now you have to do your own marketing. You have
to do everything on your own. The only people that get marketing out of a publishing company are those people who really don't need it. They're the people who are so well known that people just buy their books because a new one is out, and they'll do tons of marketing for them. But, people like me, they hand you some bookmarks and, on you go. And it's like,
you got bookmarks?
Wow. Some people do.
We have to buy our own.
We have to buy our own.
But you know what I'm saying? It's that kind of thing. Like, we'll give you one sheet and you go figure out what you're going to do. And so, I think that the indie makes a lot of sense. And especially, I mean, I look at it, people ask me, like, why did you choose to go the way that you went? Well, I'm 60. I don't want to wait 5 years to finally get an agent, to wait another 3 years to finally get a publishing company, to wait another 3 years for it to finally come out. I don't want to do that. I waited until this point in my life to start writing, and I don't want to be 70 before I see my book in print. I want it. That's a big part of it. And then another part is I want to keep control of my work. It's my art. Sometimes I find it really amazing that in some of these big publishing companies, they can tell you things like, well, you have to change the end of your story. And I think, would you ever go to an artist who painted a beautiful painting and tell them, well, we like this and we'd like to buy it, but you need to change all the purples to brown? Nobody would do that, right? But they do that to authors all the time. Yeah. Like your craft really isn't yours. This isn't really your book. And once you go with a publishing company, it isn't your book anymore.
I know.
You have zero rights to that book anymore. It is no longer yours. I don't like that concept. And maybe it's from having lived in an abusive relationship, but it's like, nobody gets to take from me what's mine, So I don't know. Indie's perfect for me.
Joy York said, I agree. It is. Yeah. Indies is a really good route to go. Yeah, it really is. Or a small publishing company.
Yeah, and small publishers are a lot like indie in a lot of senses. But you still have to pay attention to where do your rights end? What do you have the ability to do? What don't you have the ability to do? I tell new authors, those who are searching for how they're going to do it, never sign a contract that you don't know what you're signing. Make sure you know exactly what are your rights, what aren't your rights, what are they taking from you, and what are they giving you in return? And is it worth it? Is it a good exchange?
Right.
And if it's a good exchange, then go for it. And if it's not a good exchange, there are other ways to get your book out there.
Yeah.
And then hold them accountable if
Yes.
you do go with somebody. Make sure they're following through with what they're supposed to do.
Right. I have a friend who wrote a book. She's with a small press. She likes them, but there was an event she's North Carolina, so am I, and there was an event that was kind of between the two of us. And I called her up and I said, "Hey, this would be a cool thing. Do you want to do this with me?" And she said, "Oh, I would love to, but I can't. I'm not allowed to sell my books. Only my publisher can set up where I sell my books." And I thought, oh, that would not work for me.
No.
That would not, it just wouldn't work for me and my personality. It would be a game changer right there. That would be the end of that with me. I couldn't do it. So.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Your books are your books.
Yeah.
Besides, we've had tons of authors on here, and most authors make more money selling their books themselves.
Well, I mean, think about it. You're not having to pay a publisher and a literary agent and 47 other people who have their fingers in your pie. You pay more up front. You go ahead and do that up front, and then you get your money back by selling your books. And I think in today's world, there's no reason why the publishing model, the old way of publishing, has to be a thing anymore. There's no reason that you have to have an agent. Why can't I just approach the person who's going to publish it directly? Why does there have to be one more person in the mix? But that's, like I said, that's me. I know other people who disagree completely. You'll probably get all kinds of nasty because I just said that.
No.
Everybody's got their own opinions.
Yep, everybody's entitled to their own opinion and their
own
experience. Yeah, it's how I feel about how you write, what's your POV. It's your voice is your voice, and you can write it however you want to do it.
Yeah,
and
I hear a lot of new writers say things like I'm on a lot of these Facebook groups. And so you see the different posts. I tend not to get too involved in them because you could just get lost in there. But every now and then I'll read a couple and see what's going on. And the question that I see come up a lot is, am I allowed to XYZ? Like, am I allowed to write in first person? Am I allowed to have a person do this? Am I allowed? And it's like, yeah, it's your book.
Your book.
You're allowed. Now, will it sell? Will people want to read it? You're going to have to figure that out. But in terms of allowed, there isn't I don't know, there's not some committee out there that picks up books and says, oh, well, this wasn't allowed, and they throw that out. I mean, do what feels good to you.
If that's your voice, right? And that's the way you want to write. I guarantee there are people out there who want to read like that, because you
can't be the only one.
Unique,
Right.
We might think we are, but D.G. McCool says you are on the mark. And Joe Conjo said, I walked into a few local bookstores and now they're carrying my books. I had to do it myself, but that's okay.
Yeah. That's the way you have to do it.
That's awesome.
I hear that more and more.
That's what you have to do. Although, that's one thing that I have found that is very disappointing to me is some of these indie bookstores won't carry your book if you have it printed through Amazon.
I've heard of that.
And it's like, you're not hurting Amazon by doing that. You're hurting the indie author. And the reason we have it printed through Amazon is because it is one of the least expensive ways to get a print on demand book. And so if we're going to make any money at all at this game, you want to not spend $15 getting the book printed if you can only sell it for $18. You want to have some kind of a margin. And so it's a little bit of a shame. So, yeah. but that's what happens sometimes. I think that things are changing in the publishing world, though. We're going to start seeing more and more indie published authors and less of the control and monopoly with the big publishers. So.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure we are. Well, this has been fun.
It's been very good.
Well, thank you so much for having me on.
Well,
Thanks
thank you
for
for
coming.
joining us. Once again, it's Daughters of Green Mountain Gap, a novel by Teri M Brown. And want to pick up a copy of that on Amazon and just about anywhere, right?
Right. And if you want a signed copy and you live in the United States, go to my website. You can buy it there and I will send it to you. I think it's like 6 cents more because of postage, but then you'd get on Amazon, but you get a signature on it. Like I'll sign it right to you. So if you want a signed copy, that's the way to do it.
So that's www.terrymbrown.com for everybody.
Yep. There's another comment.
Okay. All right.
Joe Conjal says, awesome show tonight. Thank you, Terry, and of course, Rob and Joan. Thanks for being here, Joe.
Yeah, thank
you. Everyone else.
Yeah. So we're going to move you over to the side. Thank you so much for joining us. Stick around until we come back to you. And let's see, what else do we have? Do you have anything else you want to add?
I don't think so.
That was really good.
Yeah. It was fun.
Join us next week, 7:00 p.m. Eastern time, right here.
Not
same place that you're watching now.
Not 7:30.
Sean O'Neill, author and filmmaker, will be with us, and I'm sure it's going to be a very interesting show. And then also hop over to Amazon and pre-order Girlfriend Retreat, ... Cheaper Than Therapy. It's book 22 in the Magnolia Bluff Crime Chronicle series. And Joy York's The Moonshine Murders, also. Joy York, that's Y-O-R-K.
And Joy York said, great show. Thank you all. Thank you, Joy.
Thanks, Joy.
And Marjorie, did you already?
Nope.
Marjorie says, really interesting tonight. No surprise. Thank you, Rob, Joan, and Terry.
It's always fun, isn't it, Marjorie? We have so much fun.
We do.
We really do. Love all of our authors. Love them. Love doing this show.
We do. So, until next time.
That's all, folks.
Live every Wednesday, your Voice of Indie hosts Beam Weeks and Stephen G's welcome authors, musicians, publishing industry pros, artists, and assorted creative guests for an exciting interactive hour. Call in during the show or post questions and comments on Twitter for responses in real time. Meet your favorite indie creators, learn inside tips, network, and promote your work. The link for each week's show is pinned on Twitter atop @VoiceOfIndie. And you can receive the link every Wednesday morning in your inbox by subscribing to our newsletter at freshinkgroup.com. Check out Voice of Indie every Wednesday on Blog Talk Radio and catch hundreds of episodes archived everywhere from our websites to our YouTube channel and Spotify.
Thank you for joining us here on Meet the Author. Make sure you stay up to date with our show by clicking like, follow, and share. And you can find us on Spotify, iTunes, and more. See you next time on WLFE-DB.com.